Hey, good morning everybody. It's Clint with CCUA. We're back with another VEG Out video for you. Today we're going to talk a little bit about vertical gardening. So vertical gardening is kind of an umbrella term. It can mean a lot of different things. But essentially what it means is just growing up instead of out. So for example, you could think of it like building a house. If you have, say, 50 families that are trying to live in one building, you don't put them all right next to each other and take up a huge area. We usually will build straight up. So gardening is kind of the same way. Sometimes you just don't have as much space as you would like, or sometimes you might even be growing something that needs to grow up instead of out. So we're just going to go over a few examples. So one of them would be these sort of pallet gardens. Now these are just pallets with some garden fabric on the back and then some chicken wire here on the front with holes cut, and then we can actually plant stuff in them. And so this was a fun project last year that we made, and we haven't replanted them this year, but you can see some of the stuff that we did plant is coming back. So we've got some sage here that's starting to grow back, some chives, and maybe some different sage down here. So this is just one example of how we can garden vertically, but there's a lot of different ways to do that. There's also cages. So cages are really commonly used for tomatoes. In fact, that's what this one was made for. And this is something that when you plant the plant, you set it around it. And what that does is it keeps the tomato constrained to sort of this 18-inch diameter area right here. It helps the plant hold itself up, because a lot of times plants, especially tomatoes, get really heavy and get weighed down. And sometimes limbs can even, or little branches from it can even snap off. So having a tomato cage, make sure that our tomatoes have something to hold on to as they grow. Got another example of vertical gardening would be the trellis. So our trellis here is just a cattle panel, but it can really be just about anything that has something for a plant to hold on to. So on this trellis, we are going to grow some tiny little cucumbers. I've heard them called Mexican sour gherkins and mouse melons, all sorts of stuff. But you can see down here, there's a little tiny cucumber looking thing. They haven't started climbing it yet, but soon they're going to latch on, and they're going to use that to kind of pull themselves up until eventually they will cover this entire thing by the end of the summer. We've got another one right here behind us, except that this one we're using for tomatoes. So we've got some tomatoes right here, and those are going to grow up and use this as support as they grow. We've got one more example of vertical gardening. And this is our little, kind of a modified A-frame. So an A-frame is where you have, it's sort of like our cattle panel trellis, except two flat panels that make an A shape. So this is a bit of a modified one, where instead of an A shape, we just have 5 posts that lean against each other, and then wire is wrapped around them, leaving a small entrance right here so we can get to the inside. But on this, we are going to grow some loofah gourds. So a loofah gourd is just what it sounds like. It's a big gourd, and when it's done growing and it dries out, you can actually peel it and dry it and use it as a sponge clean yourself or your dishes or whatever you've got laying around. They're a really pretty plant. They grow super big. And again, this whole thing is going to be covered by the end of summer. Just covered in leaves and loofahs. So there's lots of things that can use trellising. Almost all melons, including cucumbers and squash, can be trellised. So that's things like cantaloupe, watermelon, cucumbers, zucchini, pumpkins, yellow squash, all that stuff can be trellised. Your tomatoes, loofahs here, pretty much anything that has sort of a viney structure, you can train to climb up something. And that's just going to save us a little bit of space, because that's an extra, who knows how many square feet than if we were to grow just on the footprint of where this structure is. Same with our cattle panel here. This is a 20-foot long cattle panel by, I think, 4 feet. And so we are getting over, what would that be? 80 square feet of garden space from this cattle panel in a 4 by 5 foot area. So that more than doubles the amount of space we have to grow. So that's sort of the advantage of vertical gardening, is sometimes the plants like it better, but sometimes it just gives you more space to work with. The only other type of vertical gardening that comes to my mind right now, which you might be familiar with, is a hanging basket. And I don't have an example here with me today, but a hanging basket is just a container, a pot, with some strings attached to it and a hook. And you just hang that somewhere, filled with soil, and then your plants just kind of cascade down. And I've heard of people having really good luck doing different flowers, like nasturtiums in those, or you could even do tomatoes or strawberries in a hanging basket too. Well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. I hope you found our little chat about vertical garden interesting and enlightening. If you have some sort of vertical garden at home, we would love to see it. You can send us a message, post it in the comments, whatever you want to do. But we will see you all tomorrow.